Hello and welcome to the Scramble. I'm your host, Jason Hawley. Today we will discuss the recent NFL controversy involving Ray Rice, his troubles with domestic violence, and the various other domestic violence issues other NFL players have encountered in recent months. We will also discuss a mother's recent indictment after she helped her 16-year-old daughter induce a miscarriage by ordering 2 special pills off of the internet. Lastly, we will discuss the crisis with Lake Mead and how it has reached an all-time low since 1936, the year the reservoir was created. Before we open the floor for discussion, let me introduce our panelists. First, we have Margot Malik, a master's student in journalism and media studies. Next, we have new to the Scramble, Brittany Rodriguez, also a master's student in journalism and media studies. James Schaefer, a sophomore and aspiring journalism major. And Louis Castillon, a senior in political science. Thank you all for joining us.
Of course, thank you.
Domestic violence seems to be a growing problem in the NFL. There have been at least 4 players suspended in recent weeks due to incidents with domestic violence. Ray Rice was cut by the Baltimore Ravens and indefinitely banned by the NFL after TMZ posted a surveillance video showing Rice punching his soon-to-be wife. The NFL claimed they had not seen the video until recently. However, a voice recording from an NFL employee stating, quote, "You're right, it's terrible," proves otherwise. Is the NFL at fault for not conducting an extensive investigation of the Ray Rice case? The question that remains is, how do you turn it off? A behavior that is awarded on the field and penalized off the field. What do you all think of this? Brittany, I'll start with you.
Well, when you condition people for a particular job, you sort of wish that that would become a sort of their lifestyle. Now, when we condition American football players to become violent and, channel their anger towards another team in order to perpetuate our entertainment, we sort of see that off the field and then have this dichotomy of what is correct and what is incorrect. But when we see that, we call that wrong in a society, and then when we see that on the field, we praise it. So yes, I think it's wrong that we kind of expect that duality from them, but it is the way that the American Football League has really sort of generated our football players.
Okay. What do you all think of this? I mean, do you agree?
Well, I myself, when it comes to the indefinite suspension, I think that, well, first off, if he has a case for the semantics, I think he does have a case, but that case is not going to make him come back to the Baltimore Ravens. But when it comes to the indefinite suspension, I don't think they should have an indefinite suspension for Ray Rice. The whole point of the indefinite suspension by the NFL is so that they can say they condone the actions of Ray Rice. But that's not their best option when it comes to what they could be doing with Ray Rice. An indefinite suspension is not the best option. Their best option is, say, like a 2 to 12 month period of time of mandatory counseling for both Ray Rice and Janae Rice. In that instance, Ray Rice is able to be looked over by a counselor to see if he has some sort of intermittent explosive disorder. Because if we just leave it just at he just needs to be indefinitely suspended and he's left in that house with Janae, whenever any act of domestic violence happens again, I don't know if we're going to be as lucky to have an Atlantic City elevator webcam to watch it all and be outraged about it. If this is something that needs to be fixed, we need to look at the statistics. I mean, the U.S. Department of Justice of Criminal Activities says that domestic violence is one of the most chronically underreported crimes in the United States. I mean, that's horrible. And a Florida Corrections Facility statement said that women who are abused by men usually stay with those men who abuse them. And if we were to say that the NFL wants the best for Ray Rice and Janae Rice and for themselves, their best option is not to indefinitely suspend. Because when that final blow will or might come, the blood will be on the hands of the NFL for having a short-term solution to the long-term problem of domestic violence.
So you're kind of assigning, I'm sorry, excuse me, domestic violence issues. Mm-hmm. You're alluding to this idea that the NFL is responsible for the issues of the private life of Ray Rice and others.
Just like how any small child would look up to a football player, football players are made to sign conduct contracts so that they maintain that not only on-field persona, but private life persona, as far as it may go. But when it comes to domestic violence, That's something that cannot be allowed. And the way I'm coming about it is from a very humanitarian perspective, I think, or not humanitarian, but my issue is that the NFL is the one that needs to take the role to make sure that if they do make an example out of him, it's not just, get out of here, we don't want you here. Their example should be, you need help, we will help you with it, and once you have gone through that mandatory counseling and you have been made sure that you are okay to go back in the field and not bring that back into your personal life, then you are truly made into an example of what the NFL can do with their utilities, with the tools they have. Because otherwise, if they just say indefinite suspension and he goes back and maybe he hits her again, the NFL will be blamed for just kicking him out and not doing anything else about it.
Okay. Lewis, go ahead, Brittany. Were you going to say
No, I was going to say, so what you're saying is that their career and the company that owns their career is responsible for punishing the action, but not too severely. So if this was another career, say, a teacher, and they, went home, domestic violence, nothing against children.
Right.
Would that be a similar scenario for you?
I would say the cases are different since this one was caught on camera. Say the teacher was caught on camera and that was shown to all of our students. Parents would be up in arms and the teacher would probably be fired in that case. But I believe in this case that we're making an example out of Ray Rice, which I think we can agree to a certain extent we are to other people when it comes to domestic violence. That we draw a line there and that is something you cannot do, be it on the field or off the field. What I'm trying to say is, we can't just make an example out of him and just say, fire the teacher or get rid of the football player. We have to give them the help so that when we do make an example out of them, we show that they are a better person. We don't just kick them out and say,
it's sort of taking the responsibility away from a personal morality and putting it on your employer, though. You're essentially saying that the employer is now determining your morality and they are responsible for getting the help that you need.
Well, then, my issue with that is then, if the NFL says they are their employer and they sign that conduct contract, the whole point of that conduct contract is that when they do something like that, they are the employer. They are responsible for the player, and being responsible, they require to act upon it. They need to have him in counseling, to make sure that he is better so that when he leaves, and like I alluded to, if he ever does do something, say, fatal to Janae or anyone else, we're going to be looking for the NFL and asking why they didn't do more.
I agree with Brittany. I think it's not the employer's job to, give them their correction.
Sure.
That's the justice system's job, especially in a case of domestic violence. I don't think the NFL has the responsibility to get him counseling or whatever it may be. I think that's on him as a person and the people around him, not his employer. Well,
and with him, going back to the semantics section of it, with him saying that, oh, well, the entire argument was not shown, that there's some sort of justification in what he did. There's not a justification. But if we did not say that if the NFL did not fire him and make that point that this is not okay, and, whether they saw the tape beforehand or, whatever they want to claim, if that had not been put in place, would he have done it again? And how much further would it have gone? And so it's on the responsibility of him, not necessarily NFL, but the NFL must act. But even more so, they need to call him to be a better person and to handle these situations better.
Luis, let me give you the last word on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with the ladies. I think that, I think obviously you're right. They are making an example. Obviously, there's been a history of violent stuff going on with the NFL. Even you can look to his old teammate, Ray Lewis, but that's another story. But yes, definitely. What he did was terrible, and I think what they're trying to do with this by banning him indefinitely is actually, they're using it as a deterrent for not only him, but other players, because they make a ton of cash, right? So if they say, hey, you do something wrong, you're going to be banned from NFL, it's a deterrent, right?
Of course, I can agree with that.
Great. Well, it does make for some interesting fodder for discussion, and perhaps we'll visit this on a later episode. But we will take a break, so stay with us. We will be back in just a moment.
die for darker skin. Sadly, some actually do. Change your thinking, not your skin. Stop tanning. Learn more at spotskincancer.org.
Help support the Breast Cancer Patient Education Act, a bill that will help make sure women facing a mastectomy are told all their options about breast reconstruction. Visit broadayusa.org for more information.
I remember the moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
That changed my life.
At that moment, it hit me. This is why I joined the Guard. We're soldiers, always ready to protect our country. But we've also got communities. Family, friends, neighbors who count on us. I couldn't believe it. I just saved a life. Somebody from my hometown.
See what it means to be a citizen soldier at NationalGuard.com.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. A mother will serve a 9 to 18th month sentence after ordering pills to induce a miscarriage in her 16-year-old pregnant daughter. The 16-year-old turned to her mother, who illegally purchased the drugs on the internet. The mother claimed she had no idea these pills were illegal and that she was only trying to protect her family. District Attorney Rebecca Warren claims, quote, "This case isn't about pro-life or pro-choice. It is about endangering the welfare of a child through the unauthorized practice of medicine and pharmacy. Do you think the mother deserved the 9 to 18-month sentence, or do you believe she was truly just trying to help her daughter when faced with a difficult situation?" Lewis, I'll start with you on this one. What do you think?
Well, in the story, it says when it first happened that she came to her mother and said, you know, I'm pregnant, and she was freaking out or whatever, and then they called a couple clinics, it says in the story, and the clinic said, we can't help you. So, I mean, at that point, they had no other choice, essentially. But she obviously broke the law. But I do think that they are, the DA is making an example of this lady. Do I think that she deserves 9 to 18 months? Personally, I don't, but she broke the law. She did endanger her daughter. Also in the story, it says that when she took the pill, she started, you know, bleeding, and, you know, so that she had to go to the ER, so.
Okay, actually, the clinic didn't say we can't help you. They said, you know, it'll be $300 to $500. You have to drive out here and talk about it and then go home for a day, and if you still want to do it, come back the next day. And her excuses, they just don't add up to me. She's saying the clinic was too far and it was only 74 miles away. That takes an hour to drive, you know. And the $300 to $500 to get something professional for your child, I mean, you could take out a loan for that. Why go to the internet where you don't know what you're getting? You could be taking a cyanide pill for all you know, like a pill you get off the internet.
Right.
Come on, just because you read up on it, you don't know what you're getting.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Okay.
And I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, ignorance of the law does not protect you from violating the law. That makes sense. The law is pretty blunt. But to play devil's advocate, you know, when going over this story, wouldn't you say the company should have provided maybe some online information about you needed a medical license in order to provide these drugs? Shouldn't they provide more information? I mean, the mother might be at fault here, but don't you see there's any blame on the company? Or maybe that although she did click on a pop-up ad, maybe that company that had that pop-up ad should provide more information, and since it didn't, maybe it should, I don't know, pay some sort of due.
Well, I think that we're talking about the legal boundaries that are outside of the scope of perhaps that website. If the website, I believe, is based outside of the U.S., and
right.
I don't think they have a legal obligation to provide that sort of information. But Brittany, I'm curious as to what you think about this. You know, an aspiring mother in the coming months. What are your
coming months. Thanks, Jason. No, I think it comes down to parenting and, you know, personal choice. And when faced with a daughter coming to you with that decision, I think she did do a good thing in saying that it is her choice. And when the daughter came back to her saying, I can't do this, from my understanding, this is now 2 years after this whole incident has happened, and now the daughter is going to college, has 2 jobs, working her way through school. So I think that in a matter of the choice, maybe it was a good one. However, with the parenting aspect of it, why were we not doing preventative measures to begin with, which would be an interesting thing to look at. But in terms of the illegal, if she is being an example to her daughter about truth and consequences, these are the consequences that we have put in place for such an action. And so she did not want to take the misdemeanors so that she could avoid jail time because she wanted to keep her job. That's her choice. But she now has to pay the consequences of her actions. And I think that is a good example for her daughter. And, you know, just to basically say that, yes, we have choice, but our choices come with consequences.
So I'm curious about, aside from her choice in and of itself as an action, I'm curious about the moral obligation or the moral aspect of this. Is there a moral aspect at play? Over the years, we've heard a number of debates about this idea of whether abortion or inducing miscarriage is morally or perhaps morally wrong or unethical to a degree. What do you all think about this?
That topic is so debatable. I think that's, I think that's off the subject of this case. I think it's just about someone breaking the law and paying the consequences for it. So they have, they have legislators fighting to keep abortion legal so people can do it in a safe manner instead of ordering pills off the internet. So
there is no moral aspect with this, or with inducing a miscarriage. Would you agree?
Well, clearly there was, because when she took her daughter in due to the heavy bleeding, which is a very basic symptom of miscarriage. But when she took her daughter in and decided to disclose the fact that they had, given her these pills, the doctor has to report that. And so it's a question of your moral obligation and your legal obligation tied into one. So there is a moral aspect, but at the same time, we're addressing the legal obligations of these people. And I think each person has a certain position to play in that. And I think we can't blame the doctor for, upholding her end. We can't necessarily blame the mother for looking for another option. We can't necessarily blame the daughter for, making this decision. But all these things have consequences, and, we can't separate ourselves from that.
Well, it is definitely another very interesting topic, but definitely for some interesting discussion in the future. Moving on to our next topic. In August 2014, Lake Mead reached its lowest level in approximately 100 years. As of last month, the man-made reservoir is 34% full, and one study published in 2008 gives Lake Mead a 50% chance of being completely empty by the year 2021. Simultaneously, global CO2 levels recently reached a 650,000-year high. According to recent tests that carbon-dated 4,000-year-old ice cores from Antarctica, what does this mean for the city of Las Vegas? Will we become a ghost town in the next 10 years due to such global warming effects? And to clarify, there were ice cores tested from Antarctica that declared that scientists declared these ice cores contained the highest CO2 levels in 650,000 years, which was 400 parts per million. They measure this in the Pacific Ocean. Simultaneously, we should keep in mind that June, July, and August of this year, 2014, were determined to be the hottest global averages on record ever. Okay, well, as far as the data that we have. What do you think? Is there a connection between CO2 levels and the level of Lake Mead, the 34% level that it's at right now? What do you think?
I would say that global warming does add to the problem, but it is not the problem. I mean, this is the second lowest that we've ever had Lake Mead. The third lowest was back in 1965. Between 1965, I should say rather, we dropped by 95 feet in Lake Mead. And between 2012 and 2014, to put it into perspective, we only fell by 50. Although this fall has been a lot more gradual, that doesn't detract from the fact that we are in a drought. But between 1965, we did rebound, the lake did fill back up, but between 1965 and 2012, something has happened. People have moved here. It's not just global warming, but we've just had this water consumption that has swelled, a population boom. Our cities become a sinful mecca to the world.
I have to correct you on that. I mean, Las Vegas does only consume approximately 3% of Lake Mead's water. Most of it goes to California, rural California farms, agriculture, those types of things.
I'm so glad you brought that up. The Colorado River Compact in 1922 was actually what decided who gets what water from where in Lake Mead and the Colorado River. Currently, we get, just like you said, that much. And so when it comes to water consumption, we look at Lake Powell and Lake Tahoe. I bring that up because when it comes to global warming, Lake Tahoe is... I read a journal up in Idaho about some college students that were talking about draining Lake Tahoe since it was wasting water, since all the water was going down because the sandstone down below was just drying it up. If we were to talk about where our water should be going, it should go to the places that need it. In 1922, we decided what states get what water, and we still abide by that today. And it is shocking. I think our state and our region have changed so vividly that if we were to talk about who gets what water from Lake Mead, I think we should focus more on southern Nevada, not to detract from global warming at all. When we talk about global warming, yes, we need the rain from the west side of the Rockies, and we haven't been getting as much of that.
Is that connected to CO2? CO2 levels in the atmosphere?
I don't want to definitively say, because I do not want to be verbally accosted once I leave this room, but I will say this. There have been experts, and I'm saying this off the cuff, so don't quote me on this. There have been experts that have said earthquakes might have tilted the axis. And now that when that rain pattern comes over the west of the Rockies, my goodness, they're getting it more on the east of the Rockies than they are the west. And what if our weather patterns are secular, which I believe for the most part they are? If they are secular, then I would hope for a rebound. But I say that to play devil's advocate, to shoot out some more, I don't know, terms.
Margot, what do you think? Are weather patterns, are the patterns cyclical, or is this a product of increased CO2 emissions from cars and humans and excrement perhaps from cows in the pastures?
I'm not sure about the CO2 levels, but what I am sure about is that we all should start doing our part to save water. I mean,
okay,
I don't
fair
know
enough.
much about CO2 levels, but
She's
that could
absolutely
be the case.
She's absolutely right. Zero-scaping is a thing that we need to do for all over the valley. I mean, we had all these people move from the East Coast and move here, and the first thing they wanted is a grassy green lawn.
Well, that's the mid-'90s mentality. Brittany, what is your idea of this? What I'm getting at is, and I know no one here wants to address it, is global warming real or is it not?
I think climate change is real.
Yeah, climate change is where we're altering our environment.
Correct. I think we are altering our environment in terms of a global warming pattern. I don't see that. I see we're changing in our cycles. I see that in the Midwest they had the coldest winter they've had this last winter, and we've had the driest couple winters the last couple of years. And so I think patterns are changing. I think that we do have an effect on our environment, but is it CO2 related? I'm not sure I'm totally convinced of that.
Okay. Lewis, what do you think?
I'd say, yeah, it does have to do with the, whatever you want to call it, global warming, climate change, carbon footprints, CO2 levels being too high. I mean, just this past summer and the last summer, I mean, in June and July, it's gotten up to 120 degrees. To get to your point about the ghost town, I mean, they're saying within the next, I've read some studies that project by, 2050, 2060, that it's going to get up to unlivable. I mean, even when it's not summer. So, yeah, I think that it's a huge issue.
I do want to say something definitively. Man does and has added towards climate change. That is something I know I can say definitively. Our CO2 emissions, man has changed weather.
So you're saying that global warming is caused by human emissions of CO2?
Our climate has changed from human activity. I don't want to definitively say what caused what, be it the term of global warming, be it global cooling, be it the moon getting off its axis. What I want to say definitively is that man has caused a difference in this world's climate. And because of that, I think we do need to answer for it. We do need to zero-scape, be that the most minuscule of the options. We do need to recycle, be that more minuscule of the options, but we need to take some sort of action. Just like you said, we had the coldest winter where?
In the Midwest?
In the Midwest. Global climate change it creates a product of extremes. when we hear someone go, oh, well, global warming, we had Hurricane Sandy, we had the coldest winter up in the north. Global warming doesn't make everything warm. It is a product of extremes. It is a product of extreme weather, extreme warming, extreme cooling.
Okay.
And I feel like that's what I could say to
All right, now in 10 seconds, Margot, give me your final thoughts.
My final thoughts is that we need to do a better job taking care of the environment, whether it be with our CO2 emissions or using less water, being less wasteful.
I like that answer.
Okay, great. I appreciate the pun. But anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Share your opinions and any ideas or topics you'd like us to scramble about to thescramble.unlv@gmail.com. You can also catch full episodes of The Scramble at unlv.tv. For all of us here at The Scramble, thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.